Standing on Morocco's northern shore, you can see Europe. Across the narrow strait, just 14 kilometers away, rise the cliffs of Gibraltar. Morocco is a country of impossible contrasts. To the north, the Mediterranean Sea and the Green Rift Mountains. To the west, the wild Atlantic crashing against ancient fortress walls. But geography is only the beginning of the story. Our journey begins in Fez, the oldest of Morocco's four imperial cities. At the very heart of Fez lies what many consider Morocco's greatest treasure, and it's not a palace, not a mosque. It's the University of Al-Qarawiyyin, founded in 859 by a woman named Fatima al-Fihri. But Al-Qarawiyyin is more than just a seat of learning. Here were kept manuscripts that preserve the knowledge of the ancient Greeks and Romans through Europe's Dark Ages. Here studied thinkers whose ideas would later ignite the European Renaissance. Walk through the Medina of Fez, the old city, and you find yourself in the largest car-free urban space in the world. Fez is famous for its tanneries, the Choera, where leather is still treated exactly as it was in medieval times. But nothing within these ancient walls compares to methods that haven't changed in centuries. And this isn't stubbornness, it's artistry. Leaving Fez, we head southwest, crossing the Middle Atlas, a mountain range cloaked in cedar forests, where Berber tribes still live as their ancestors did thousands of years ago. The Berbers are the indigenous people of North Africa, living here long before the Arabs, Romans, or Phoenicians ever arrived. Descending from the mountains, we approach Marrakesh, the Red City, named for the color of its sandstone walls. The heart of Marrakesh, Jima El Fna Square, pulses with life from dawn till deep into the night. By day, snake charmers pipe to cobras, storytellers gather crowds listening to ancient legends, acrobats perform dizzying feats. In 1222, a sultan of the Almohad dynasty began building the Qutubiyya Mosque, a masterpiece of Islamic architecture, whose minaret soars 77 meters high. But Marrakesh's most breathtaking creation is hidden behind unassuming walls. The Bahia Palace, meaning the brilliant, was built in the late 19th century by a grand vizier for his beloved wife. Legend has it the palace took 14 years to build, and the vizier hired the finest craftsmen from all across Morocco. From Marrakesh, we continue south, crossing the high Atlas on one of the world's most dramatic mountain roads, the Tizi Antichka Pass, which climbs 2,260 meters above sea level. On the southern slopes of the Atlas lies a place that seems carved from the rock by time itself. Ait Ben Haddou, a fortified village, or ksar, built from clay and straw in the 11th century. Ait Ben Haddou served as a vital caravan stop on the ancient trade route between the Sahara and Marrakesh. Camel caravans laden with gold, ivory, and salt would rest here before crossing the mountains. And this place captured Hollywood's imagination. Ait Ben Haddou has appeared in dozens of films, from Lawrence of Arabia to Game of Thrones. Its ancient walls have stood in for cities on other continents and in other eras. Beyond Ait Ben Haddou lies another world. The city of Ouarzazate, gateway to the desert, sits at the edge of the Sahara. This is where the mountains end and endless rocky plains and sand dunes begin. Not far from Ouarzazate lies Todra Gorge, one of Morocco's most breathtaking natural wonders. Limestone walls rise vertically 300 meters on both sides of a narrow passage, in places narrowing to just 10 meters. For rock climbers from around the world, Todra is Mecca. More than 600 routes of varying difficulty are mapped across these sheer walls. South of the gorge stretches a kingdom of sand, Chebbi, one of the Sahara's most majestic sand seas. Berber caravans crossed these dunes for centuries, carrying gold, ivory, and slaves from Timbuktu to the markets of Fez and Marrakesh. But the Sahara's true mystery isn't in the sands, it's beneath them. Today, Moroccan engineers drill wells reaching depths of 800 meters, bringing this fossil water to the surface. It feeds the oases where millions of date palms grow, green islands of life in a dead sea of sand. On the western edge of the desert, where the sands meet the Atlantic Ocean, stands the city of Essaouira, an ancient port founded by the Phoenicians 2,500 years ago. In the 18th century, Sultan Muhammad III transformed Essaouira into the primary slave trading port. More than 100,000 African slaves passed through these docks, shipped to Europe and the Middle East. Today, the city is known for something different. As the capital of Moroccan rock and home to the Nawa Festival, the music of the descendants of those very slaves. This discovery upended science. Before this, it was believed that modern humans emerged in East Africa 190,000 years ago. Just to the north, on the shores of the Strait of Gibraltar, stands Tangier, a legendary city, the gateway between Africa and Europe. Spain is just 14 kilometers away. This proximity made Tangier a place where empires collided. Phoenicians, Romans, Byzantines, Visigoths, Arabs, Portuguese, Spanish, French, British, everyone wanted to control this crossroads of worlds. This status turned the city into a haven for spies, smugglers, and artists. European millionaires hid from taxes here, and this is where Paul Bowles, William Burroughs, and Jean Genet wrote. But Tangier's real secrets lie underground. Beneath the old Medina stretches a labyrinth of tunnels, first dug by the Romans and expanded by smugglers in the 20th century. East of Tangier, the Rif Mountains rise in steep peaks covered with cedar forests and poppy fields. This is the land of the Berber Rif tribe, a people who never submitted to conquerors. In 1921, the Rif rose up against Spanish colonizers. Their leader, Abd el-Krim, created an army of 50,000 guerrillas and spent 2 years crushing Spanish garrisons. Spain, in desperation, deployed a forbidden weapon, mustard gas, dropped from aircraft onto Rif villages. This was the first chemical weapons bombardment of civilians in history. Even this didn't break the Rif. Only a combined Franco-Spanish army of 450,000 soldiers managed to crush the uprising in 1926. Today, the Rif Mountains are known for something else. This is the world's largest cannabis-growing region. Some 200,000 hectares are planted with marijuana, a harvest that accounts for 23% of global production. The Moroccan government fought this for decades, destroying crops and arresting farmers. On the northern Rif coast, along the Mediterranean, lies Morocco's jewel, Chefchaouen, the Blue City. The entire Old Quarter is painted in dozens of shades of blue, from turquoise to indigo. Why? Nobody knows for sure. One legend says the tradition was brought by Jewish refugees from Spain in the 15th century. In Judaism, blue symbolizes heaven and the divine. Another version is simpler. Blue paint repels mosquitoes. But there's a fourth theory the locals don't like to discuss. In the 70s and 80s, Chefchaouen was a hippie mecca, drawing crowds in search of cheap hashish. Today, 2 million Instagrammers visit Chefchaouen every year to photograph themselves against those blue walls. The city lives off this. Every family repaints their house once every 2 years, keeping the brand alive. But Chefchaouen is just a backdrop. Morocco's real story as a dream factory begins in the desert. 100 kilometers from Ouarzazate stands a Roman city, built in 1999. Ridley Scott chose Morocco because you can shoot Rome here cheaper than in Italy. Labor costs pennies, the weather's stable 300 days a year, and no unions shut down production. After filming Wrapped, the studio just left. The sets remained standing in the sand. Locals quickly realized they could make money from the ruins of Rome. Today, for $5, a tourist can step into a Colosseum that never existed. Gladiator opened the floodgates. After that, everyone came to Morocco. Oliver Stone built Babylon for Alexander. Ridley Scott returned and raised Jerusalem for Kingdom of Heaven. Morocco became the world's largest roofless film studio. You can shoot any era, any climate here. Need the Arabian Desert? The Sahara is 2 hours away. Need snow-capped mountains? The Atlas is covered from December through March. But there's one location that's been used more than any other. The Fortress of Eight Ben Haddou, a mud brick city on a hillside, built in the 11th century. It appeared in Lawrence of Arabia, The Mummy, Prince of Persia, dozens of other films. What you see is reconstruction done for Hollywood. Every time a studio arrives, the city gets rebuilt. Walls are reinforced, houses repainted, details added. and no one objects. The locals figured out the rules of the game long ago. When the studio pays to repair their homes, they get a free restoration. But that's not the strangest part. The strangest part is that many tourists don't know they're on a film set. They think 8 Ben Haddou has always looked like this. Morocco turned this game into a strategy. In 2002, the government created the Morocco Film Commission, a state agency designed to lure Hollywood. They offer a 30% rebate on all production expenses. It works. In 2015, Morocco earned $120 million from film production. For a country with a GDP of $110 billion, that's pocket change. But it's not about the money. It's about image. But there's a dark side. Studios arrive, build, shoot, and abandon. Sets are left to rot in the desert. The Roman Forum from Gladiator is now filled with garbage, walls crumbling, columns covered in graffiti. And the locals are trapped. They depend on the productions, but productions are unpredictable. A town can wait 1 year, 2, 5, and no one comes. Then people go back to their goats and the drought. There's another city that lives cinema differently. Ouarzazate, the capital of Morocco's film industry. It's home to the country's 3 biggest studios: Atlas Studios, CLA Studios, and Canzamon. Together, they cover an area larger than central Paris. Atlas Studios was founded in 1983. The first film was Z by Costa Gavras. Since then, over 100 films have been shot here. The studio has become a museum. For $8, you can walk in and wander between worlds. To the right, Jerusalem from Kingdom of Heaven. To the left, Egyptian Thebes from The Mummy Returns. Straight ahead, the castle from Game of Thrones. But the main attraction is the fighter jet from James Bond, The Living Daylights. The plane has been sitting on the lot since 1987, rusting and falling apart. The cockpit is sun-bleached, the wings covered in cracks. Ouarzazate lives cinema so deeply that even the architecture has adapted. Hotels here are styled like Casbahs, not real ones, but Casbahs as they appear in movies. Restaurants are decorated like Lawrence of Arabia. And it works, because tourists want fantasy, not reality. They don't want to see the real Morocco: poor villages, dusty roads, unemployment. But let's return to the first question. What is real? Chefchaouen is painted blue for Instagram. 8 Ben Haddou is rebuilt for Hollywood. Ouarzazate exists as a living film park. Even Marrakesh, the country's oldest city, has adapted. Locals say 50 years ago the square was different. Back then it was a real market. Dirty, chaotic, no tourists. Merchants sold food to locals, not souvenirs to Europeans. One woman who does henna for tourists told a journalist, "I used to do henna for weddings. Now I do henna for photographs. The designs are different, simpler, faster, brighter. Brides want tradition. Tourists want a picture." And that's the genius of the strategy. Morocco isn't trying to be authentic. It's trying to be recognizable. It's selling an image of Morocco that people have already seen in films, in advertising, on postcards. The Morocco they expect. But behind the scenes of this carefully constructed spectacle, another story unfolds. The story of an economic engine running on resources tourists don't even know exist. Morocco is the world's largest exporter of phosphates, a mineral modern agriculture cannot survive without. The country controls 75% of all known global reserves. This gives the kingdom immense geopolitical leverage. When the world talks about food security, it's talking about Morocco. And here's where the real mastery of Morocco's strategy reveals itself. While the world gazes at Riyadh and Medinas, the kingdom is investing billions in infrastructure, in ports, in railways, in solar plants in the middle of the Sahara. In 2018, Morocco launched Africa's first high-speed railway. The trains reach 320 kilometers per hour. That's faster than most European countries. Tangier, once a sleepy port city at the edge of the continent, has become one of the world's largest logistics hubs. Tangier port handles more cargo than any other Mediterranean port. More than Barcelona. More than Marseille. This isn't by accident. This is the result of decades of planning. Morocco is positioning itself as the gateway between Europe and Africa, as a bridge between two worlds. And it's working. But here's the paradox. The more Morocco modernizes, the tighter it clings to its traditional image. The more modern its cities become, the more carefully the medinas are preserved. The more global its economy grows, the louder the call for authenticity rings. Because the country understands, its power lies in this contrast. Tourists don't come to Morocco for skyscrapers. They come for the feeling that they've stepped into another time. Tourism brings Morocco over $8 billion a year. That's more than the entire GDP of many African nations. And the numbers keep climbing. By 2030, the kingdom plans to welcome 26 million tourists annually. But there's a price. Marrakesh, once a living city where tourism was just part of life, has now become a stage set. Entire neighborhoods exist only for visitors. Locals are moving to the outskirts. It's called touristification, the process when a city stops being a place to live and becomes a museum. Venice, Barcelona, Dubrovnik, and now Marrakesh. But the kingdom isn't stopping there. It's pushing further. Right now, Morocco is building 6 brand new tourist cities from scratch. Artificial resorts along the coast. Completely designed. Completely controlled. Morocco without Moroccans. It's the logical next step. If authenticity is a product, why rely on real cities with their unpredictability, their actual life? Easier to create a controlled environment. A theme park called Morocco. And yet, despite all of this, something real remains in Morocco. Something that can't be faked or staged. You see it in the mountain villages of the Atlas, where tourists rarely reach. In the small towns on the edges. The Berbers, the indigenous people of these lands, have lived here for thousands of years. Long before the Arabs. Long before the French. Long before the tourists. Perhaps that's where Morocco's future lies. Not in choosing between tradition and modernity. Not in pitting tourism against real life. Because Morocco has always been a country of borders. Between Africa and Europe. Between the Atlantic and the Sahara. Between Islam and the secular world. Between past and future. The only question is whether it can hold that balance. Can the country modernize without becoming a copy of everywhere else? Can it preserve its identity without freezing itself in the past? There's no answer yet. But the very fact that Morocco is asking itself this question means something. Many countries just drift with the current. Morocco, at least, is trying to steer. And maybe that's the lesson. Not what Morocco is doing right or wrong, but that it's making a choice at all. Morocco is not a museum, and it's not Disneyland. It's a living country, changing every day. And yes, it sells its image. Yes, it manipulates perception. But behind that stands a real strategy, a real will. And maybe that's the true Morocco. Not what the postcards show, not what Hollywood films, but a country that's learned to play the global game without losing itself completely.